You know, in my opening remarks, I had indicated that anybody who wants to lead this country must be prepared to subject your vision to intellectual and analytical rigor. So we have asked for this. You can see even from the first one. It's just on a lighter note. I think during Jerry Rawlins's time, he was on a trip to Volta region, and he was sitting at the back, obviously with the tinted windows. And there was this policeman who stopped the car. Jerry could move without being recognized. So I think you got to a stop. As always, the policeman was saying, my friend, lower your. The driver said, oh, take your time, lower your glass. Who is sitting at the back? Say, do something, like that. So he was trying to insist that the person at the back was there. So I think Jerry heard and he lowered his glass. The man said, I suck myself. So this one, I asked for it. Only number one. So you can see when Atugu and the rest come, then by that time, I have to ask permission to leave. But this is what it requires. It's not just a question of putting down your ideas, but you have to subject it to interrogation. Number one, Obawale was asking about on infrastructure. How are we going to select our contractors? Because he reinforced the point that I've made that if infrastructural projects, the construction of these projects is going to be driven by the private sector, then his question is that, how are you going to select the contractors? But before I answer, Prof, I want everybody in this country to understand that what I'm proposing, we have no choice but to do what I'm saying. Because this mindset that government can use internally generated resources, finance infrastructure, it doesn't make sense. It's not sustainable. It ain't gonna happen, and that is why we are where we are. The money will never be there. And even for the most matured economies, where they've been able to accumulate, they don't even do it. So the first thing for us to appreciate is that it is not going to happen. This whole interest in even government finance projects using public funds, it is the lure of it is corruption. That is basically why it's interested. So the business model I am introducing, the private sector to finance these projects, is based on well-known business models. So if you want to construct a road, it's BOT, build, operate, and transfer. So you provide the financing, you do what we call the EPC, engineering, procurement, and construction. You do that, and government gives you a period within which you can recoup your investment. And then after that, build, operate, and transfer. So you operate it. And then after the end of the concession period, you transfer. So in actual fact, then at the end of that concession period, then owns the project without even putting in a city. Now, because of the nature of this business model, the issue of corruption is highly limited because you have to go and borrow. And if you borrow and you are giving the concession, BOT, government will not just allow you to charge, if it's road tolls, any amount that you want to charge. There's value for money when you even submit your BOT proposal. So it will still go through the normal procurement process because you may have more than one or two interested investors. So it is at that point that the contract evaluation process will determine first those who have the technical capacity. Secondly, the financial, because if you say you build, create, and transfer, you must have the financial muscle to do that. So it is not joke. And if you want to do BOT, you must demonstrate that you have the financing, because government is not going to borrow. So you still go through procurement process. But I'm submitting that because this is not government investing money, because you are borrowing, because you'll be subjected to value for money audit, and because there will be some regulation in terms of the pricing of your service, it is not that easy for everybody to jump in. If that were easy, then everybody would do BOT. Yes. So there's that rigor that will be used in selecting the uh, the contractors. A second point related to that is, yes, it's BOT, but is the BOT, are you going to allow Ghanaians also to bid if it's BOT? That basically is the substance of this new business model. That it is BOT. Allow Ghanaians also to go and then find the money and come and then build, create, and then you transfer. And it's even better if you have Ghanaians who are bidding for this BOT. Because remember, at the end of the day, you have to leave the project in the hands of people. And so, if you're a Ghanaian, you still continue to enjoy the benefits of your. So I just want to clarify the fact that you are bringing private sector business people into this is even going to totally limit this incidence of corruption, because there's not a freebie. You have to go and borrow money and come and construct, and after that, you have to make enough. But it also means that Ghanaians should be prepared to pay for services. I'm sure many of you have traveled to other countries. Every 30 kilometers, you have to pay toll if you want to drive on a good road. If you go to JFK in New York, by the time you reach Manhattan, which is the center of New York, you have paid all so many tolls at different points. So it's a joke when they are collecting 1 cedi for you to drive on a motorway. But the point is that we have no choice. We have come to a time where we have to bring private sector in to finance infrastructure projects. And this whole thing about, but for security reasons, how can you ask private contractor to finance the construction of an airport? It's very dangerous because you don't have control. They are not serious. Do you know how many national, major international projects that are owned by private sector? So many of them. There's even one Nigerian who owns one of the major international ports in the world. So it's a question of not understanding how the world operates. How the world operates. So, Prof, I'm saying that we have no choice. This is the only way to go. And the GTP is focusing on that. So that was in infrastructure. Number two, made a very important point about environment. Now, if there are no incentives to deter people from abusing the environment, then obviously they'll continue to abuse it because there's no deterrence. So the entry point for dealing with that, first, the legislation or the legal framework, the regulatory framework. That is the starting point. Because if you don't have a regulatory or legal framework that serves as a deterrent, violating the environment, then people will violate the environment. Number two is institutional, because if you have an environmental protection agency, that as it is for most public sector institutions, that does not really appreciate the need for delivering quality services in that department, and obviously people will continue to abuse it. How is it that you have a situation where people are building, in areas where they have not been zoned to? It's all a question of, indiscipline. So it's not just the law, it's also the institutions that are required to superintend the whole area of environment protection. Last but not the least is the mindset. Is the mindset. You see, yes, you can have the law, you can have the institutions, but if the people themselves are still living in the dark ages, then they don't even care. They will violate the environment, and then you catch them. It's so, for me, these are the three entry points for us to deal with it. We've made, obviously, some commitments under the global frameworks for environmental protection. You know, all this business. So that is also another entry point for us to respect the commitments that we make to these global frameworks. Not that